Hey y'all, let's take a look at our final thing with equations. We need to solve some equations that involve what are called rational numbers. Rational numbers are almost any number you're going to come in contact with in algebra or pre-algebra like we do. They're numbers that include fractions, decimals, or negative numbers, positive numbers. They can be in the answer or they can be part of the equation. Don't panic. That Desmos scientific calculator that we have linked in our agenda will help you with the fractions. It'll actually turn them into decimals for you, so don't worry. There are also handheld calculators that have fraction functions. Let's take a look at a couple examples. Here's our first example. No fraction, no decimal, but here's something that messes with a lot of people, and that is a negative coefficient. Now, in front of this parenthesis, you'll see there's just a negative sign. There's no number, but you know that if there's no number, what number could we put there? We can always put a 1. This negative here, it's really important that you do put that 1 to remind you that there is a negative 1 in front of this parenthesis that you're going to need to multiply. If you remember when we learned distributive property, the number or coefficient in front of the parentheses gets multiplied by both items inside because it's telling us how many groups. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this negative 1, I'm going to multiply it by x. That gives me a negative 1x. And I'm going to take that negative 1 and I'm also going to multiply it by that positive 4. What happens is that's going to change this plus sign and make that a negative 4. So a negative coefficient, it could be a 1 or it could be a 2 or a 3, is going to change the signs of the numbers inside the parentheses. Then I've got my negative 8. Now, as you can see, I have a two-step equation. Add 4 to both sides. Bring down my negative 1x. Negative 8 plus 4 is not going to be 12, not going to be negative 12. Starting at negative 8, I'm going to add 4. That's going to actually give me a negative 4. And then finally, divide by negative 1. X equals 4. Let's look at another example. This one's a little longer. Don't panic. A lot of you are starting to panic when you get to long equations. They're not done any differently. You're just going to do them in smaller parts. Here's an example of something I was talking about with a negative coefficient. In front of the parentheses here, you see a negative 3. That means I'm going to take this negative 3. It means I got negative 3 groups of just this. It has nothing to do with the rest of it. So I'm going to take this negative 3. I'm going to multiply it by that 4x. That gives me a negative 12x. I'm going to take that negative 3 and multiply it by this positive 3, which is going to give me a negative 9. I'm done with this part now. So now I'm going to distribute this 4. The same way over here, only it's a positive, so it's going to be done exactly the same. 4 groups. 4 times 6x is 24, so I'm going to put plus 24x. 4 times 1 plus 4 equals 43. Now, you're getting overwhelmed. It's okay. I've got a lot of terms here. Let's focus on what I can put together to clean it up a little bit. I see this negative 12x. Do I see any other x's on this side of the equation? Yep, right here. I've got this plus 24x. I'm going to put those together. Negative 12 plus 24. Remember, I pay attention to the signs in front of the numbers. Negative 12 plus 24 is actually going to give me a 12x. Those are gone. Now I've got this negative 9 plus 4. Don't forget, when you take this negative 12 away, that minus sign doesn't disappear. That negative 9 stays put. So negative 9 plus 4 is going to give me a negative 5, and then equals that 43. Now I've got a two-step equation. Add 5 to both sides. Sorry, my board is not cooperating. Bring down my 12x. 43 plus 5 is 48. Divide both sides by 12. X equals 4. All right. Let's go ahead and look at this next one. So now we're going to deal with one that has a fraction. When dealing with fractions, you do have the freedom to change them into decimals if you want. However, I'm going to show you a couple things. Thing one, let's pull up that Desmos calculator. Here's how you would do a fraction on the Desmos calculator. It's pretty easy. There's this little fraction button, this A over B button. I would type that in, and then I can put my type that in, 1, 2, move my cursor over so that I'm out here. Now, if you remember, I'm going to need to take this 1/2 and multiply it by both terms inside. So if I come back to my calculator, 1/2 times 6 is first. That gives me 3. So I've got 3x. And then I've got 1/2 again times 20. That's going to give me a 10. There's a minus there, so that's a minus 10 equals 50. Two-step equation, pretty easy. Look, we got rid of all the fractions. There's not even any decimals here. Add 10 to both sides. 3x equals 60. Divide both sides by 3. X equals 20. Not too scary. Let's look at one more. This one's a little intimidating. It's okay. I got a whole bunch of decimals, no fractions, but I want you to realize that Desmos calculator is going to help you. You just have to be really careful that you're going to be writing the numbers down correctly. So let me adjust my window here so I can have both of these screens open at the same time. Looking at this, over here I have a 0.84 minus 0.09x, nothing I can put together. Over here I got to get rid of these parentheses before I start taking anything away. I have a 0.3 as a coefficient in front of the parentheses. That means I'm going to multiply both of these terms by 0.3. So if I come over here to my calculator, 0.3 times 0.25, that means that this is going to give me 0.075. It's really important, and make sure you put that X, that you understand that's not 0.75, that you get that other 0 in there. Next, I'm going to do 0.3 again times 1.6. Because I have to take this and multiply it by that second term. That gives me a 0.48. Now notice there was a subtraction here. So minus 0.48. I didn't do anything over here, so I'm going to rewrite those numbers. 0.84 minus 0.09x. Now, a lot of people get to this point and they want to start rearranging this equation because they don't like the way it's written, because they get stuck as to what they need to do. I have variables on both sides. Here's what I want you to pay attention to. This variable 0.075x is a positive number. This variable over here, the 0.09x, is actually a negative. It's got that minus in front of it. We don't like negatives, so I'm going to add 0.09x to both sides to get rid of this on this side. Okay? Those are gone. Bring down my 0.84, nothing else on this side. Come over to my calculator. I have 0.075 plus 0.09. That's going to give me 0.165x minus 0.48. Now, of course, I have a two-step equation. I can rewrite it if I need to. 0.165x minus 0.48 equals 0.84. Decimal's still going to solve exactly the same. Don't freak out. Get rid of this 0.48 by adding it. Keep in mind, right here, plus 0.48 plus 0.48, running out of time. Calculator, 0.84 plus 0.48 gives me 1.32. 0.165x So take this answer, 1.32,